Hey there, welcome to another review, this time of the 1990 crime thriller Rainbow Drive. Now I know that title makes it sound like it's a lame movie, it's not a good title, it's a total turnoff, but it makes sense because the Rainbow Drive, the titular Rainbow Drive, is actually used quite frequently in the film, and it's based on a book of the same name by Roderick Thorpe, the same writer who wrote Nothing Lasts Forever, which is what the film Die Hard is loosely based on. So it makes sense, but I can see why it's a turnoff for a lot of people, a lot of audiences. But if you ask me, it shouldn't be. You should check this out, especially if you're a fan of Peter Weller, because he is really on his A game here and delivers one of his best performances, and definitely one of his most underrated. So, yeah, as you can see, I was definitely surprised by this film. I went to this movie with no expectations whatsoever. The title was made me leery. The whole, oh, it's a crime thriller. That's not really one of my particularly favorite genres of film. So I was kind of like, okay, I was afraid it was going to be boring, and it wasn't. It wasn't boring. I know there's a lot of critics who've said it is. It's boring and it's cliched, but I respectfully disagree. This is one of the better crime thrillers that I've seen from this particular time period, from the 90s or from around the time of the late 80s that carried over into the 90s. Now, the book, I've never read it, so I can't really compare the book with the movie, but this was a diamond in the rough. And I love finding films like this. I really do. Now, I thought I had it on VHS, but apparently I don't. At least not here. I might have it in storage in Michigan at my dad's place. But it was on YouTube, so I was able to watch it that way. It has not gotten an official release in the US. I think there was a release overseas somewhere, and I think that was just a VHS rip. And so best way to watch it is on YouTube. And I'm going to put a link in the video description down below so you guys can check it out for yourself. If you want my opinion on it, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on it and maybe have a few spoilers. So just want to warn you there. But for those of you who are curious about it, you like Peter Weller, and you don't want things to be spoiled, go down in the video description down below. Check out the movie for yourself. I think it's definitely worth a watch, especially for Peter Weller's performance. Anyway, this is a film that is directed by Bobby Roth. No relation whatsoever to Eli Roth. And Bobby Roth, not really a well-known director. He's done a lot of TV movies. He did a handful of TV movies with Craig T. Nelson. There was one he did with Craig T. Nelson called Ride with the Wind, where Craig T. Nelson plays a biker. He did that after this. He's not really the most well-known director, but he does a decent job here. He's probably one of the few things that holds the film back a little bit. I think more stylish, slick directing would really have benefited this film. It's something akin to like Michael Mann and Manhunter. I think that really would have added a lot more to the movie. But it's serviceable. It's adequate. It's average. It doesn't hurt the movie. It has a teleplay by Bill Phillips and Bennett Cohen, and I think they did a great job adapting it. Now, I've never read the book, but what I mean is, I think they did a great job writing the film. This has some nice bits of dialogue. It has some nice little subtle touches that, to me personally, made it stand out from the rest of the films of its ilk, and I'll talk more about those a little bit more in depth later when I get to sort of the plot synopsis of the movie and kind of talk about certain sequences about the film that I liked. It features a cast that's comprised of Peter Weller as Mike Gallagher, which I admit was really fun to see Peter Weller, one of my favorite actors, play a character with the same name as me. Sela Ward plays Laura Deming. You have David Caruso, who was in NYPD Blue and other movies. It was also CSI Miami, I believe. He plays Larry Hammond, who is this rival cop who doesn't want Mike to get involved with the investigation. He wants him to stay out of it. Tony Jay plays this old guy. He's L.A. This guy who like owns the L.A. Post, and there's some shady stuff that goes on with that character. James Laurenson plays Hans Rohrig, who is this different. He's like I'm trying to think of what his nationality is, because his accent's kind of hard to place. But I think he's a foreigner who runs a front at this local bar slash club, and it's a front for money laundering. Jon Gries is in it, or Jon Gries. He was the Wolfman in the Monster Squad. He was also in Fright Night Part 2. He's in this as the bartender for this bar slash grill. Not really grill, but there probably is a grill. So it's a bar slash a club and a front for money laundering. You also have Chris Mulkey, who was in Ghost in the Machine. He's in this as a coroner named Ira Rosenberg. And you also have Chelcie Ross, who was in Major League. He plays this politician named Tom Cutler. And you also have Megan Mullally, who you might know from Will and Grace. She's well known for her role as Karen Walker. She's in this as a character named Ava Zeif. I think that might be the character where, I don't know if it's the one that was all like acting French and was being all weird and couldn't act. It could be her. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to see her in a film like this. This is before her rise to fame in Will and Grace. Now, this is a Showtime made for cable film. It aired on September 8th of 1990, and it was, interestingly, I guess Dove International worked on it, and ITC Entertainment Group, which I think pretty soon after this, that kind of went under, because ITC didn't last very long, if I remember correctly. Now, this movie was actually marketed and talked about on a talk show called I think it's called My Own Talk Show or My Talk Show. I don't remember exactly what it was called again. I could be completely wrong. I think maybe it's the title of the girl who hosts it. But anyway, I'm going to put a link in the video description down below for a link to this clip. And it's a fun clip because it's actually a pretty unique idea for a talk show. It's the talk show was like, okay, what if you had a talk show and it was this housewife who's hosting her show in the comfort of her own living room, and she's got her friends and some other family members and neighbors who come in every now and then on the show, as well as actual guests. And one of the actual guests was Peter Weller, and he actually name dropped this film, and so kind of did some promotion for the show on this talk show thing. So I don't know, maybe the show aired on Showtime, so maybe that's why it was on there, but I don't know for sure. And then the full episode of the talk show is actually on YouTube, as well as a bunch of other ones. So I just thought it was an interesting thing, and I thought it was interesting that he mentioned this film. Now, the film also features a score by Tangerine Dream, which is great. It's a great score, and it really does elevate the film to a whole nother level. Because how often do you see a TV movie, a made-for-cable film, feature a score that's this good by an established composer or artist such as Tangerine Dream? And just like most of their scores, it's atmospheric, it's moody, it's memorable, it's great, but it actually was never officially released in terms of on CD or cassette as a soundtrack. The title track was released on a bootleg CD called Prayer of Quiet Dreams in 1993, but it has never been officially released. If I could say the word officially. It has never been officially released, and I think it's too bad because it's actually a really good score. So, yeah, I remember when I first heard it, I was like, wow, this is a good score. Like, who did this? I'm like, oh, Tangerine Dream. Wow. Well, no wonder it sounds good, because it's Tangerine Dream, who have done a lot of great scores for a lot of other movies like Near Dark, The Keep, and so on. Now, you have a really solid cast. I mean, you also even have Bruce Weitz, who plays Dan Crawford, who is Peter Weller's partner slash best friend in this movie. He was in Hill Street Blues. You also have an actor named Harry G. Sanders who plays Melvin Burgess, who is another fellow police officer, LA cop who helps out Peter Weller's character. He was in Rocky Balboa. He played, I believe he played Tarver's trainer, if I remember correctly. I think that's the character that he played, and I'm just going to look that up real quick. So I got it for sure, because I don't want to like make a mistake. But a character named Martin. I think that might be him. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's the same actor played his trainer. Now I could be wrong though. But anyway, he's good in this. He's got some good chemistry with Peter Weller. He helps him out in the film, and he helps debug his apartment. He also gives him a pen gun that Peter Weller's character Mike uses later in the movie, in the lead up to the climax, which is really cool. I mean, how often, and that leads into the sequences that I like, that I want to talk about, that I want to mention in this review. I don't necessarily want to go through a synopsis because I kind of want to save some of it for so people can check it out themselves. All I gotta say is it grips you, it grabs you from the beginning. Peter Weller is a single cop. He's hanging out with this girl who's also married, which shows you that he's not perfect, but he's also not a total asshole. He just, he's just kind of looking for love, and she's looking for love too. We don't really hear anything about the relationship that she's in or whether it's a problem or not. And I think this is the woman that's on the cover art for the movie, who really isn't in the film that much. But he hears a dog barking outside, so then he goes in and he basically asks her where this dog comes from. She tells him where. He goes in, finds the dog, goes to bring it back to the owner's home, and he ends up walking into a murder scene where there's been a crime that's just been committed, and it's a brutal crime too. There was 5 people who were brutally murdered, and you got the blood, you see the blood and everything, and it's pretty intense. And then he gets in a little sort of chase with the guy who was the killer, and the killer gets away, and then he gets involved in the investigation, then uncovers that there's some kind of corruption going on. Maybe there's some police involvement with this cover-up. Maybe there's a police cover-up or a political cover-up. One of the bodies that he saw has ended up going missing. The police arrived there really quickly when he went to the crime scene. When he was just going to return the dog, and the police were right there right away, which he thought was suspicious. He goes in, and he's also finds that it's really suspicious to hear from the other policemen, other people investigating the case, were saying things like there was 4 people who were murdered. He's like, wait, no, there were 5. So right off the bat, it's already got me interested, because you got this right, in the first 5-10 minutes, you already have his murder scene. Then he goes in and he's trying to figure out what's going on with this missing body. And then his friend, his partner, he ends up getting killed. And then this leads into Peter Weller pretty much going renegade and trying to investigate the case on his own and try to get revenge for his partner's death. And Peter Weller, he is absolutely a joy to watch in this. And it's also a multifaceted performance. There's multiple different levels to his performance. There's the fun, badass, renegade cop aspect of it, which I love. He goes into this club / bar, and he tells this guy up at the bar, he's sitting there at the bar, he's like, these 2 guys are like, hey, get out of here. He's just no nonsense, just get out of here. And then there's these other guys who are trying to give him some shit, and he just pulls out his badge and he's like, read. And then he goes up to the penthouse that's on the top of the bar and the club, and he meets up with the foreign guy who's one of the main villains, Hans, and he has this just absolutely badass scene that I love. I love this scene. I love this line of dialogue because he finds out, he does his own investigation and pretty much determines that Hans could be the one responsible for killing his partner. And he goes in and, Hans is like, do you know who I am? He starts roughing some guys up and he's like, do you know who I am? And Peter Weller's like, yeah, I know who you are. You're trash. And I'm going to fuck you up. You're just like, yeah. Woo! Man, I love it. You gotta love it. You got to love it. I mean, Weller is on his A game here. You're trash. And I'm gonna fuck you up. You're like, yeah. Do it. Fuck him up. Fuck him up, Mike. Do it. Fuck him up, Weller. Kick his ass. Kick his ass, RoboCop. And there's just more than one scene, too, where he's just being a badass. He meets up with Hans later again because Hans is trying to sneak... He actually kind of asks for a meeting, or Hans is trying to sneak up on him in his apartment. He pulls out these two guns. He's pointing them at Hans. And Hans is like, what do you want? And Peter Weller, his character, Gallagher, is like, I want to shove these two pistols in your face and blow your brains out. You're like, yeah, do it. And even Hans is like, well, do it. And I'm like, yeah, shoot him. But that doesn't happen. But man, that would have been awesome. That's one thing I'll talk about that when I talk about the things that I didn't like about the movie. I'm trying to add some structure to these reviews. As much as I can, anyway. I mean, come on, that's badass. He's got his two guns, and he's like, I'm gonna blow your brains out. There's another scene later where he goes in and interrogates this one guy named Bernie. Well, when he strips him naked in the shower, which is kind of weird, I have to be honest. But he's like, with scalding hot water, he's basically waterboarding the guy, and he's telling him about he's threatening him. He's got the gun pointed at him, trying to get information out of him, and he does it in just an epic, just badass way, where he's just like, you know what's gonna happen when I shoot your dick off? You're like, oh damn! Like, he's not fucking around. So yeah, Peter Weller's Gallagher character is a joy to watch in this. He really does elevate this movie to a lot higher elevation than it would be if he wasn't in the film. This just shows you how great of an actor Peter Weller is. So, yeah, he's in top form here. And what I mean by multifaceted is he can be a badass, loose cannon. But he's also really good in a scene where he breaks down and cries with Sela Ward's character. And the whole realization of the fact that he might have killed his partner by trying to go ahead with this investigation really hits him, and it's a really great moment, and Peter Weller's performance in that scene is phenomenal. And his whole performance in this is phenomenal. So, yeah, so Peter Weller is definitely one of the main things I like about the film. The score, I really love the score by Tangerine Dream. David Caruso plays a great asshole. I like seeing the eclectic different cast members. I've seen in other films before, in other TV shows. It was a good cast. For the most part, it was well paced. I didn't find it boring because I was always interested in the story because I wanted to see what was going on with Peter Weller's character. I wanted to see the mystery solved, and it actually ended up going in a direction that I didn't see because I thought it was going to go one way, but it went another, which I did appreciate. And there were these really subtle things in it that I noticed that I think a lot of people overlook and a lot of critics overlook, but I think that's too bad because these were little subtle things, nice little touches that really helped make the film a good movie. It's not a great film because there are some problems, but it made it a good movie, not just because you have Peter Weller and other good actors in the cast, and a fairly good story, and so on, and some great lines of dialogue, but you also had these nice little touches. And what I'm talking about is, for example, when Peter Weller's partner dies. The movie doesn't actually show it happen on screen. It happens in a way that it's very sudden, and it's different. It's somewhat unique, because I don't really remember seeing a lot of films that have this type of plot line and this type of genre that went the direction that this film went. So you had Peter Weller's character. He gets a phone call, and then it cuts to him at the coroner's office, holding his partner's hand, cold, dead hand, while his partner is there dead on a slab. And the finality of all of that just really stood out to me. And I thought that was different, because normally a lot of these films, they'll show the partner get killed and then they'll show the coroner scene later. Or they'll show it in a flashback. But here it was different. And I like that. And then there was other things too, like it didn't need to do this, but it did it, and I think it added impact to the film that it needed, and I felt was really a breath of fresh air. For example, there's a scene after he is there at the coroner's office with his friend, where then goes to what you don't know what he's doing, and then he goes to this house, he opens the door, there's this lady there, and she goes in and she tells Mike Gallagher, she says, no, 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 and then she breaks down in grief and just anguish and just cries her lungs out and her eyes out. And it's actually a good performance by the actress too. It's very believable. And then you find out, oh, that was the wife of his partner. And see, that's the kind of stuff that goes unnoticed by a lot of people. But to me, I think it shouldn't be, because that added a little bit more to the film. It made that the death of the partner so much more powerful, because it showed you, oh, it doesn't just affect the lead character. It just doesn't affect Peter Weller. It affects other people too. We even see his other fellow police officers reacting to the death of their fellow man. So that was a nice touch. Another nice touch that I liked from this story and from the script, from the teleplay, and that didn't have to be there, is there's a scene where Peter Weller is going in and he's looking around his apartment and checking for bugs. And he finds some in his apartment. His apartment's been bugged. And what I'm talking about is there's a scene where the film shows you the absurd amount of bugs that are in his apartment in a really fairly unique way. It just shows these bugs just all in this plate that he has on a table. And he's like clinking them one by one onto the plate. And I just thought that was a really inspired touch. Another example of this is in the scene where he's pointing the two guns at Hans. Hans leaves, before he leaves a Polaroid stuck in between the keys of Mike's piano. And in it is the photo of this girl that he was with in the beginning of the film that he was calling over and over again, trying to get a hold of her, named Christine, and her throat is slit and slashed. So now you're like, wow. I mean, that was actually a different way to reveal the death of this character. And you, like I said, it could have easily just shown her dead earlier on in the film, shown the scene, and then Peter Weller, we know she's dead, but Peter Weller's character doesn't know she's dead. Could have done that with his partner too, but they don't do that. We know all of this stuff as soon as Peter Weller's character knows all of it. And that's a sign of a great teleplay and a great script, because you are figuring things out, you're putting things together at the same pace as your protagonist is. You're not ahead of the protagonist. And I think that is definitely an underlooked aspect of any screenplay, is when they do that, and they do that well. And I personally feel that Rainbow Drive did that well. Now, and there's some good location too at the end. I mean, he goes in and gets in a little bit of a shootout in the printing press area of the LA Post. So I thought that was a nice little touch as well. Now, but yeah, there's a lot of things that I really liked about the movie, but there are a few things that ended up holding it back from true, instant classic status, or from it being a great movie. As it is, it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. It's definitely one of the better made-for-cable thrillers I can think of. But there's a few things that definitely did stand out to me that I really wasn't a fan of. For one, it could have used a little bit more action. It's not an action film, so I'm not upset at the film. I'm not going to criticize the film like a lot of critics have criticized the movie and condemn the film because it didn't have a lot of action sequences. It's not an action movie. It's a thriller. Just because RoboCop is in it doesn't mean it needs to be an action movie. It's not an action film. It's a thriller. Now, but that being said, I can't lie and say I wouldn't want more action. I mean, who wouldn't want more action, especially some two-gun action? Peter Weller has these two guns. He doesn't use them. I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen him take out Hans that way instead of just hitting him with the pen gun and then hitting him over the head with a board. I absolutely would have preferred to have some two-gun action akin to the two-gun action you saw from Bruce Willis in Last Man Standing. I would have loved to have seen that. I mean, Peter Weller with two guns just blowing people away, that would have been awesome. Absolutely. I'm totally down for that. I don't know anybody who wouldn't be down for that. Could have fucked up David Caruso's character that way, too. That would have been fine with me. But no, we don't get that. There's certain sequences as well that just make the film stop in its tracks. One is Peter Weller, Mike Gallagher, he goes in and he's trying to piece together the puzzle, trying to figure out what's happened to some of these people, like one of the murder victims. And he goes in and tries to visit her roommate. And for some reason, she's got this fake French accent going on. And she goes in, he goes into her apartment, and it's got all this jungle stuff everywhere, and there's monkey noises in the background, and she's talking about, oh, I want to be reminded of the islands, because I like the islands, and you know, I wish I could, I wish I could be there again, and I'm just like, I don't know, what, this is just weird, what is this? This needed to be cut out of the movie, or something needed to be changed, because this does not fit with the film, or the tone of the movie. You got this weird lady who sounds like she's drunk off her ass, and there's monkey noises, ooh, ooh, ah, 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 and then Peter Weller's character, Gallagher's trying to investigate the murder of these people, and what happened to his partner, and there's monkey noises in the background, and jungle stuff, and coconuts, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? And so I definitely don't care for that scene. The movie just comes to a grinding halt when that scene plays. The climax, like I said, it could have used a shootout. That would have been much appreciated. If you're gonna have David Caruso's character die the way that he did, show him die. Because apparently he fell into a printing press. Then show him get crushed by a printing press. By printing press. Sorry, I can't say the word. Show that. That'd be a nice little bit of gore. That would have been nice. But no, you don't see it. You just see Peter Weller's character drops him in there, and then you hear David Caruso scream, and that's it. Pretty much dies off screen. And then the whole sort of ending where nobody really gets arrested, nobody really gets implicated for the crime, but you know, because Peter Weller, he killed the person that could have ended up having he killed the only person who was going to be implicated, which kind of makes him kind of look like an idiot. But at the same time, you understand because he's pissed off and he wants revenge. And I would have been okay with it if you saw him get crushed by a printing press or Gallagher blew him away with his guns. But you didn't really have that. The direction also, it's like I said, it's adequate, it's average, but it could have been better. And the pacing at times, it could be trimmed up a little bit so it can move at a little quicker pace. But those are the only problems I really have with the film, are those few little things. But overall, I liked it. I liked Rainbow Drive, and it's a shame this isn't on DVD in the US or on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. But it is on YouTube, and I do recommend it. I absolutely recommend this film. I think it's a real diamond in the rough, and I don't know what else to say about the movie, except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I would give the film 4 out of 5. I liked it that much. You know, phenomenal performance by Peter Weller. One of my favorite performances from him. Definitely. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that a piece of shit like Cat Chaser has a DVD, but not Rainbow Drive, which features one of Peter Weller's best performances. But hey, that's how it is. Sometimes it's just how it is. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching. And as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.